this Saturday, I played in my third over the board tournament game, and I played 4 games at 15 with 5-second increments, the usual standard format for these tournaments. The last 2 over the board tournaments, if you don't remember, I didn't play very well at all. I blundered a good amount, and I ended with 1 point each, both those tournaments. So my goal going into this tournament was to just get better than a point. 1.5, 2 points. That is satisfactory. As long as I'm improving, I would be happy with my performance going into this. In my first game, I'm playing this guy named Isaac. He is a 15-10 rated player, and I am the white pieces. So I go out with E4, and he goes into the Sicilian. And so I have either the Staunton Cochrane or the Smithmore Gambit that I usually do. Today, I wanted to go with the Staunton Cochrane variation. So I went with C4, and we just kind of go into the opening, just kind of developing, getting everything set up, and we are pretty even from this point in. So I've finished my development at this point, and at this point we're just jockeying for a better position. So he gets his knight in here, threatening here, and I don't really want that to happen, so I take that knight. The reason I take that knight, or I take the knight with the bishop, if I took with the knight, bishop comes down, or the pawn comes down, and I still have my bishop, and I'm getting forked. That's why. So that's why I took with the bishop there. Takes with the pawn, I come out here, and then he comes out, forks these 2 pieces while protecting this pawn. So I just say, hey, let's shore up the weakness in these. If he wants to take here, that's great. If he takes there, we can take with this, or we can just leave it. We'll probably just take with the pawn. Like, we're fine still. He's got a slight advantage. So he takes with that pawn, I take with the bishop. So we trade off. He brings this knight over. This bishop is now double protected, triple protected by these 3 pieces. And so I pushed to F4 thinking I don't really know what to do at this point. It's pretty rough. Apparently, according to the engine, that is a blunder. The reason being, yep, A6 comes down, kicks my knight out. I have a weaker position. This knight's kind of out of the game. Now I have a really passive knight. Bishop comes down, puts me in check, and I lose my knight because of that. So I try to block his bishop in right there. Said after the tournament that was something they didn't have, like he didn't think was happening. So that was something that stressed him out. But he did pretty good in getting it out. But he blundered right here. When I brought up this rook, I was like, I'll take the bishop, no problem. But he takes the pawn, and I take with the rook, and we're about back to equality at this point. He brings the knight back. I take this and I say, cool, let's trade off some pieces. Let's get closer to the end game. That's the only thing that's kind of going to save me. He threatens the queen. So I come back, I'm looking at this pawn, trying to at least take some sort of advantage, but he offers a queen trade instead. So I have to take it because my queen is now pinned to the king. I then go to attack the bishop, and he throws a check here, getting the rook into my defenses. And that's where he takes the lead. I have to bring the king back because I don't want him to get on this pawn munching spree. And so I push here on h4, and that kind of spelled the doom for me from there because he brings his king in. I bring my king over here, and that is a huge problem because I don't want to go here because then it's check and I'm in a real bad position. I can't like go this way. It's all bad for me because my king's going to be crowded and checkmated pretty quick over there. And so I come here hoping that he's going to make some sort of blunder. I put him in check, but the king's coming in. And at this point, the pawns, I try to take some pawns, but he just gets right to it and starts promoting this piece. And I try to take as many pawns as possible, but at this point, we get mate and 8, and I get to checkmate there. So I lose my first game, but considering it was against a 15-10 and most of the game was about like equality, I felt pretty good about how I played. He thought I was mostly winning, but looking at the engine now, it's definitely not the case. So I was very happy with the first round, especially against a 15-10, because I usually don't play very good against people of that caliber, but very happy nonetheless. So that is the first game in the over the board tournament. We go into the second game now. I am black. I'm playing against white. He is a 1362 here. He starts off with d4, and I go with my f6, my usual plan against d4, and he goes into the queen's gambit. So I say, great, let's try to get a banco out of this. And what do you know? We get into a banco, and it's great. I love playing the banco. I feel like I'm in a very good advantageous position when I play the banco, so I'm very happy with what we're going into. I'm very well prepped for the banco. And so I get the structure going. We get into the opening. I get all my pieces into here. And I noticed early on that this knight here on h3 was kind of useless. So I was trying to take advantage of attacking on the queen side as quick as possible. But at this point, it was hard to get any kind of advantage. He attacks my queen. I just bring it up. He brings the knight back. I trade off the knight, thinking, hey, he takes there, can take the queen, but I kind of forgot that the rook was here. I kind of knew that it was there, and I kind of factored it into my calculations, and I thought maybe that was the best move at all for me, totally. But he took there, and if this queen wasn't here, oh, it would be pretty close. Well, there's the bishop there too. But so we're here in this position. I'm trying to get something. I'm like, okay, let's trade off queens in this position. Because when you're in the Banco, like in this kind of structure, this pawn structure right here is really good for an endgame position. So you just kind of want to trade off and get to the endgame as quick as possible. So that's what I did. I'm trying to trade off, bring pieces back. Let's trade. I'm trying to just trade as much as possible. I realized pretty early on that I didn't even realize I had a kind of a nice little tactic here once his rook is off this file. I think he moved it there because of that, but trying my best to open up something on the king side. But at this point, things were going bad because now I have this weak pawn and he's up a pawn. He's about to get a second pawn. And with this king now activated, my king kind of so far off, it was really hard to get involved. So what I probably should have done here, saying rook to c8 and just forget about the pawn. I was thinking maybe going rook to a8, reason being the king can't really get in here, but that would be better. I feel like it'd be really hard for this knight to get in. But I went knight to b3 instead, saying, hey, I got this protected by this. He's attacking this pawn, so I brought it back and he just kind of bullied me down the board. I tried to grab a pawn, try to kind of fortify myself there, but it was too hard to really stop this king, and I took way too long getting this king out. And so as time went on, he just kind of bullied my knight around, and I wasn't really able to get any like position to win. And so there was a few more moves after this, but it looks like he made an illegal move and I didn't catch it, so I'm not able to put it in the analysis here. But he ended up getting this pawn promoted to a queen and was about 3 moves away from checkmate. So I lost the second game as well. So I'm starting off 0-2. Not happy with where I'm at. I now need to win my next one and at least draw my second one to improve on my over the board tournament rankings. Usually when I'm playing these rankings at this point after the first round, I'm playing some more like 800 rated players. So I was like, oh man, this sucks. But I lost the third one. So we go into the next game playing against a 500 rated player. And now I am black again. So he goes e4. I go with my bread and butter, Caro Kann. But we're gonna go into a 2 knights attack. I just go into the Mindano variation where I'm looking to pin this knight and kind of thwart any attack, and we get into this structure. So I go and attack the pawn right away. I just kind of like, let's develop, try to get it out as much as possible. You know, he's attacking me, we go out. I throw this out. I'm looking at castle. He tries to take it and I say, hey, let's get some blood there. Let's take the knight. He takes back, damages the structure. I push up. This is probably where I probably shouldn't have. I probably should definitely have castled at this point. He goes and attacks the king and then I castle. He then attacks my bishop. I have to bring it back. He takes my knight. I take back, and now he's taken the pawn and he's taken a 1 pawn advantage. Engine has this at a complete draw. I felt at the same time too, I was in a very good spot because I jump up with this knight here on the outpost. Yeah, you can attack me here, but I can always take here with tempo on the queen. He takes my bishop and I open up this file to the rook here. So this is where things look really good because he goes in I don't know why he went here to attack my knight, but I knew from here I had a really good like backdoor. Queen to h4. I'm coming for the king. It's gonna be really hard to stop this. You're gonna have to probably drop the rook, the rook back. But instead of that, he brings the king over here to h2, trying to defend this h3 square. And I come up with rook to f3 here, cutting off this queen, supporting this queen attack. And so he sacks the knight. I put him in check. He drops back. I then take the queen. And from here, it's just easy checkmate because you can't really stop it from here. So I one-handedly on my third game of the day. So I'm now at 1 point. I need to just draw, just at least a draw for the next game. And I'm like, maybe I'll play around an 800 rated player. Usually how these Swiss tournaments go. I don't play that high rated. And so I go into my last game now and I'm playing against a 1563. So I'm not happy about my where I'm at. I'm like, great, I'm gonna end with 1 point again. How am I going to really get my half a point here to get my improvement? So I start off as white. I go e4. He goes into a French defense. I hate playing the French defense, so I just trade off those pawns, hold it up to d4, and we're just gonna play a normal game of chess. I don't know the theory behind the French, so I don't like to play the French because usually if I play the advanced variation of the French, I get crushed. And so we're playing our game, and I'm just doing standard principles, trying to develop as quick as possible, trying to get my rooks connected. He brings the queen out, trying to attack here on b2. I bring my knight over there on a4 to attack it. He brings that back. And then I'm thinking maybe I can push over here on the queen side. He centralizes the rook, and then I make this idiot plan because I think, hey, maybe I'll double up the rooks and fight on the e file here. And after kicking my bishop out and I take the knight, I completely forget about this bishop here to f4. So I'm kind of like, I'm skewered here. I'm gonna lose the rook. So I say, fine, whatever, take the rook. I'm gonna pin that bishop to that rook. He brings it in. I'm gonna attack that bishop with my knight. He doubles up the rooks. Things are not looking good for me. I'm down 4 points according to the engine. He brings the bishop back, and instead of exchanging, because I knew that'd be bad, I brought the knight over here to e5, trying to slow it down any way possible. We're looking to blunt this attack that's coming down, this very scary attack. And he goes and attacks my knight, trying to take away any defenders. I then go to attack his queen, and we trade off the bishop for the knight. I say, great, awesome. So he brings the knight over here. I bring the knight back, thinking, hey, now you can take, but it's kind of on my terms. If you take, I'll take with the pawn. And that's what he does. So I feel like now that this is closed down, the threat's not as bad. He brings the knight back. I'm gonna bring the bishop back, centralize it, try to play defensive as much as possible. He brings the knight in. I just trade off the knight. And after he takes to the rook, I say, okay, you're now kind of in jail as a rook. Yeah, you can go on the fourth row, but I'm taking you out. Other than that, you're in jail. But he comes in with the pawn, so I have to bring it back. He then doubles up the queen, and I have to bring in this king over here to f2 to defend this pawn. Then drops a4. The pawns are coming down. So I'm trying to lock it up as much as possible, just trying to shelter down, keep things as defensive as possible. If I'm just trying to get a draw. That's all I'm trying to do at this point, especially since I lost a rook. It's not good. So I bring the king over here. I realize as soon as I make that this is a mistake. Why? Because you can just take this pawn. There's nothing stopping it, but he doesn't see it. He brings the king over instead. So I have to bring this over. So the biggest issue is we're going to have like a pawn push here, which is going to completely destroy this king side. So he pushes there. I bring the knight back to defend this pawn here. He then takes. I take with the knight, creating another knight outpost. If he comes here, if he comes down here on f5, I figure I can come here and make his life like annoying. Just try to annoy as much as possible. He brings the queen. I bring the king, because now that the queen's over here, he can't attack this e3 square. Protect this knight as much as possible is basically what I'm saying. I say, great, let's trade off the rooks. He takes, and I take with the king. So I'm in an endgame here, a rook knight endgame, down 2 pawns. Or no, I'm not even down 2 pawns. We're even on the pawn material here. So he tries to attack my knight. I bring it over here to e5, creating that outpost. This rook has nowhere to go. I mean, you can throw some checks, but that's about it. I then take a pawn. He pushes up. I then take there. He puts me in check. I come back here. He brings the king back. I say, great, check, get out of here. He goes here. I go here, let's say, hey, I'm gonna take this b6 pawn, and then probably try to push from there. He brings the knight back, blundering the rook. I then take there, and then I push the pawn up to d5, which is an issue. He brings the king. I go up to c4. He brings the king back, and I say, let's just get in front of this. And then he goes here. I go back. We repeat a couple moves, and it's a draw. Looking back now, I thought this was a complete draw scenario. Even though I was up a pawn, I didn't think that I'd be able to push this without the king getting involved. I'm now realizing, so what I need to do is go here to d2, causing him to go back, and then go to e2. He comes back, and then I can push up to e3, causing the opposition to go off, and I get this pawn, and then I can push up. But at the time, I just wanted to draw. And so I got it. The draw is mine. I finished with 1.5 points. I had some progress with the over the board tournament, so I'm super happy about this. So yeah, that's the fourth over the board results. I played some very strong opponents, so I'm very happy with how everything turned out. Next week is going to be actually one of probably the biggest tournament I've ever been in. There's multiple brackets, so there's going to be an open and I think an under 1700 bracket. So I'll probably finally be playing people around my skill level, because right now, the 2000s play and they easily clean up, and I'm nowhere near the top table. So it'd be nice to have some fighting chances. I will be telling you all about that tournament next week. You'll find it here. And yeah, so if you like that video, please like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also follow me at Twitch at twitch.tv/ZachSkowski, where I go over opening videos, I go over these tournament recaps, I do all sorts of chess related stuff. Links in the description below, and the next tournament video will be here. So until then, I'll see you later. Goodbye.